confirmed the president was tested for COVID-19 before the first presidential debate. And two officials familiar with the frequency of the president's testing says he was not tested daily, as the public had been led to believe. According to a report from the New York Times on the growing number of COVID cases at the White House, administration officials admitted to giving the impression the president was tested daily, with comments such as these back in July.
As I've made clear from this podium, the president is the most tested man in America. He's tested more than anyone, multiple times a day, and we believe that he's acting appropriately.
Wow. And now there's speculation that that's completely untrue, that the president's doctors won't reveal the last time he tested negative. A crucial piece of information for determining the stage of his illness, because he may not have been regularly tested at all. That same day in July, the president himself contradicted McEnany on the testing free.
Welcome. It's War Room, a pandemic, live from Washington, D.C. You're in the War Room. Jack Maxey, Raheem Kassam, Stephen K. Bannon, producer Vish. It's Wednesday, the 7th of October, the year of our Lord 2020. Crucial piece of information. Here's what I'm doing for the audience. Here's what we're doing. We're going to start your day every day like Joe Scarborough, hearing Mika's voice. How's that away? How's that to start? How's that to start the day? Episode 423, Newsmax TV, now in 70 million homes. Real America's Voice, now Dish Channel 219, Comcast Chicago, Channel 113, and of course, the John Fredericks Radio Network, the voice of the deplorables, the platform of the deplorables, GTVG News throughout the universe. Also on YouTube, everywhere else. Go to YouTube and sign up for our YouTube. Be a subscriber. We're talking about putting up additional content there. We get so much content we got to put out. We want to have another producer Vish. I'm getting bugged. We got to do another Vox Populi. We got to start doing Vox Populis here. A lot going on. Episode 423. We're ubiquitous everywhere, and we've got almost 16 million downloads in the podcast. When everybody sign up for the podcast, give us a review. Go anywhere to get the podcast. Better to see it visually, right? Because every now and again I have a good hair day. Jack Maxey's here. He's all in one zip code today. Wow. Okay. Here's. Let's give you a signal in the north. They've been hunting this one for a while. What they're trying to do is they're trying to make sure that low propensity voters, and particularly low propensity, they're trying to kill and crush the 65-year-old crowd and older to make sure that they lose heart here or have questions about Trump. They're trying to turn President Trump into Typhoid Mary. You can see how they've been angling this now since last Friday. When was your last testing? When was the last negative testing? You've now got Fort Apache over at the White House. The campaign, and the president's tweeting out, in his own negotiation style on the stimulus. Federal Reserve chief doesn't help him. Comes out and says, "Hey, we need one." Right before he calls it. It's time to. There's one thing about riding to the sound of the guns. There's another thing about we got to have like an ordered column here, right? We're trying to march. This is march or die. So somehow somebody's got to let's get some organization here. You got to get organized. And I realize it's tough. It's tough at the White House, tough at the campaign. But hey, that's what tough times for tough people. And right now, you can tell these segments of the vote, the low propensity voters, everybody's scrambling out there to get those. The mid propensity voters, these early ballots, the mail-in ballots, and there's more, nonsense all over the place. Thousands of ballots popping up everywhere. And the president's on, and you can tell when he doesn't feel like he's either being supported or things aren't happening, he's just going to get on Twitter and disintermediate everybody. Not just the mainstream media, he's going to disintermediate those around him. So if you want to be remediated? If you want to be remediated, I'll make up a word here. If you want to get back in the program, you got to start, let's get a couple of verticals. Boom, and just kind of hit the marks. Crucial piece of information from Mika. They're going to be on this all day. This is going to metastasize. Trump's a liar. Trump's Typhoid Mary. He's the spreader. He's the only guy that was at both. He's the only guy that was at both the the special meeting of the Supreme Court. They had an inside and an outside. He's there, and he's also at debate prep. That's what they're trying to show. Actually, Chris Christie was at both, and I think Kellyanne was at both. Not that we're counting, but we are, right? So I want to turn now to, look, we're 26 in a wake-up. The generals and admirals tell us it's the most important election in the history of the republic. That's not us. That's Tom Hayward and 250 flag officers that supported Trump. Most important election in the history of the republic. And here's why. If we don't come out victorious, I don't know if we got, this is like the last days of the Roman Republic, right? I'm not so sure we're going to have a republic going forward. And that's not Bannon hype, right? Or some of our audience, I won't name you by names, but I read all the tweets. Bombastic, okay? I want to go first to Raheem Kassam, then Jack Maxey. Jump in here, guys. White House under siege. Is it Fort Apache? I guess there's not enough cavalry over there to be Fort Apache.
There's no one there. It's empty. I mean, the White House is not a functioning operation right now, and that's something that I think
So what do? We got 26 in a wake-up. We got to win this. You don't have a functioning White House right now. I'm just saying, hey, this sounds like a matter of fact because the president is like on the, he's hitting the teletype every 30 seconds with another missive that's a tweet. And hey, I look, go back to the February of 18 when I said with what the House Intelligence Committee, then run by Jim Jordan and run by the Republicans, Nunez, these guys, gave the subpoenas. I think there were 27 reports, 27 pages of subpoenas to Rod Rosenstein. And I said, hey, Rod Rosenstein, not about the Mueller investigation, but if he didn't cough those things over, he should be fired. I'm on record in multiple interviews. Hey, just saying, Bannon's right again. And, hey, I'm glad we're doing a 26 and a wake-up. But you know what? No offense. That train's left. We can get all over it. It's going to make everybody, all the hardcore Trump people feel better. But we should have done that 2 years ago. And we had the power to do it 2 years ago. And if John Kelly and these guys are slow-walking it, well, hey, he's still chief of staff. What's the follow-up? Who's following up on that? All of this should have been out. Should have been when Nunez was running the committee. They should have gotten all of this. They never saw it. Now we're going to put it out to public. I think it's great. It shows the collusion. It shows all that. But it's almost like an after-action report. Action, action, action. What's Ben Shapiro's? We got Ben Shapiro's tweet. Ben Shapiro's got a tweet up. I think people better embrace this. And this is signal, not noise. And you're hearing a lot of this, right? All of a sudden, people are starting to. That's not what 16 was. You got to be focused on, boom, powering this thing through. The most important thing you can do. You want to read that, producer Vish? I can't see. I don't have my glasses on. But I thought it was interesting.
If Donald Trump loses by double digits to a comatose 78-year-old career politician plagued by incoherence and logorrhea and pledging to enact the most radical left-wing agenda in American political history, I'm sorry, but that's on Trump. The campaign against Biden isn't difficult. It just requires Trump to take himself out of the spotlight and put Biden in it, and Trump refuses to do it.
Well, I think let's put that up for a vote, right? Whether you like Ben Shapiro or not, he's an important voice, right? Let's put that up on the site for a vote. Do you agree with that or not agree with that? Here's the thing: we got to win. It's just no doubt we got to win. You don't have a choice. We must win. Now, the way we're going to win is to fully represent on game day, have a massive turnout, right? Particularly low propensity voters, mid propensity voters. You have to do it. And then hold on for dear life. Starting at 11 o'clock at night, just hold on for dear life. That's where it's got to be, Fort Apache, because they're coming at you. They're coming at you with thousands of lawsuits. They're coming at you with the oligarchs, the tech oligarchs. And you see they're getting worse every day. They're coming at you with Antifa and the certain elements of Black Lives Matter. They're coming at you with all of it. Okay, and they're coming hard. You saw yesterday. Do we have James Woods? James, who was that? Was that Jack Maxey to pull that up to me?
Yes.
He lives on the James Wood. He lives on Natural News and James Wood's Twitter feed.
When I'm not consulting with the government of Sweden on the herd immunity.
Exactly.
When he's not pitching the president on herd mentality. We're going to get to this. First off, hat tip to Jack Maxey. Jack Maxey, I think in the third or the fifth episode, we're going to pull it. The Great Barrington Declaration is essentially lifting the war room pandemic, what we said in the spring, targeted interventions. I don't mind. I like this. I kind of like focused, focused protection? I like targeted interventions better, but hey, focused protection's fine. We're that type of group. We don't care who gets credit. Let's just do it, okay? We're going to get to the Great Barrington Declaration. If you haven't read it, we'll get up on our site. We'll tweet it out. You got to read that. It's 2,000 physicians. But this is kind of Jack Maxey from episode, I think, 7, right? The one and only Jack Maxey. With back then, Dr. Stephen Hatfield, the curmudgeon.
This is the Dr. Maxey doctrine?
The Dr. Maxey doctrine. No, but it's logical.
Put on your big boy pants.
We were the ones that say, hey, shut the whole thing down to crush the thing. But once you do that, you got to, there's always an argument in here. But you can't. The CCP did this. You can't just stay in lockdown forever. It's just not mathematically impossible. It's mathematically impossible. It's just the country won't exist. You just don't have the we don't even have, not even the United States has the balance sheet to do this, as we've now proven. And that's why the president is out. We don't know where we are in this negotiation, right? Like we said a couple months ago on the show, you should have just hit the bid on the $2 trillion, right? Because right now, you're just trying to bridge it. And it's no time to be look, I appreciate the limited government thing, but that train's kind of left the station, right? At least for a while. And the only way you're going to get it back is to continue to hold the Senate and win. So,
I have a little comment on it. We're seeing some of our guys are saying, Shapiro's right. I agree with Ben Shapiro, Okay, look.
Don't put your thumb on the scale. But go ahead.
Here's the deal.
But I want to have a
Donald
vote.
Trump
Do we
is
have
the
it
general, but
a
we
vote.
are the army. We fall or stand together. Everybody has to be involved here. This is a plea to the entire population of America. We're going to get into it in a little bit. We've got a great guest coming up at the half hour.
Yeah, Steve, Sam Fast. But here's the point. The only way this is going to get done is just like in 2016. This has to come from the base and the grassroots. You have to drag, and if you're one of the Bernie listeners who are between Trump and Biden, and Trump's just not your cup of tea, you have to listen to this show for months and months and months, that's fine. You should do for Biden what we're saying the people should do for Trump. And what that is participate in democracy. This is going to be something that's going to be, the victory here will be a victory of the people. There's no doubt. You're going to have to, right now, be tweeting out everything you can, pushing out all this content, talking to people nonstop, but also you got to participate, get people out. You've got to engage. You got to sign up to be a poll watcher. You got to sign up to be an election official. But principally, we got to represent 11 o'clock at night on the 3rd if we're not posting big numbers. And let me pick 3 random states: Florida, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. Okay, I'm going to pick 3 random states out of a hat. Those 3 got to represent. Raheem Kassan's been uncharacteristically quiet. Mark Levin says something nice about him. He's just all warm. He's just going to sit there. He's just playing that in his earphone all day long.
Sorry, you're saying something. I've got Mark Levin in my ears.
We'll do a cold open on that. Can we do a cold open on that? The shout out. Okay. Hashtag war and pandemic. We got a vote up there about what you think. It's not time to start pointing fingers, but it's time to start asking questions. And one of the questions you got to ask is of your posse, who is voted? Who's going to vote? How are they going to vote? How are you going to get other people? We need force multipliers. That's what Jack Maxey's talking about. Be a force multiplier. We're going to return in the war room in just a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, we just had a goof there. Thank you, Denver. Okay, we're going to get into it. We're supposed to have a very dramatic cold open. Didn't happen. Welcome back to the War Room. 7 October, year of our Lord 2020. And
can we get them a broadband connection over there? They're working on dial-up.
We'll do that. We'll do that for the next. I want to go to you on a serious note.
Yeah.
Where do we stand in this? This is the fog of war right now, folks. We specialize in the signal, not the noise. So Raheem Kassam, Mark Levin's giving you shout-outs. Quite frankly, I think for not one of your better performances.
Okay.
No, it's okay. But Raheem, yesterday,
Don't worry, you're still my favorite old man.
No, because I challenge you to be better. I said, hey, what's Levin saying? Great things about you. Saying this guy's the National Pulse, which I think great site. Raheem Kassam, he's brilliant. And then I find out it's for Raheem's thing yesterday on the CNN poll. Trump's down 16. Raheem just goes, yeah, he says, you got the thing. I'm not sure I like the crosstabs. They don't work. So we can just take 10 out of that. I think we're there in 6. I go,
okay, number one. Right. Number one, it wasn't about yesterday. It was about the weekend polling.
Oh, the weekend polling I thought was good.
The Wall Street Journal, NBC one. Secondly, I did walk you through how I'm taking 10% off it. I wasn't just taking 10% off it.
It wasn't 10%. It was 2/3 of the good. But okay, where are we today? Where are we?
Yeah.
And
let's put it this way.
I want your analysis and your observations, and maybe even your these are my recommendations. Because
I think Ben Shapiro's tweet. I mean, I'm not a huge Ben Shapiro fan, but I think his tweet was accurate. I think the problem is this president wants to be in the spotlight himself, whereas he really needs to be taking the spotlight and shining it on Joe Biden. I think that I hope that that's what Mike Pence is going to do tonight in the debate with Kamala Harris. Speaking of superstars.
Action. I'm an action guy. I'll say one thing about the ads. I don't think the contrast ads are working. I know the campaign doesn't have a lot of money, but people are just not going to buy Joe Biden's a socialist. It's not working.
Right, I agree.
Okay, time to save money and put it into. I'm going to throw out a random idea. Paid chase. This is going to come down. Write this down with a number 2 pencil. This is going to come down to, if you got a shot here, it's going to come down to low propensity voters, mid propensity voters, and they just don't appear. Okay, they got to be got, right? And the way you got them is you got to go knock on a door, right? Multiple times. This is one advantage you have the Democrats. They're so traumatized. Remember, here's the working thesis. They've traumatized their voters. And they're even traumatizing them more and more every day because you listen to CNN or MSNBC, no chance do you want to come out, right? Unless you're not a mask, you want to be in a full bodysuit. So go ahead, Raheem. Now that's stolen the microphone again.
It's okay. There's 2 things here. Number one is you look at the latest Economist YouGov poll that popped this morning, and there's actually no statistical change from their previous one last week. So all of these polls that are coming out and going, Biden's up another 5 points or another 6 points.
That's a good poll. What does the poll say?
It's not real. Now,
what does it say?
It's a 9% difference, but it's no change.
Okay.
And I'm looking for the changes right now. I'm looking for the momentum. Looking for the differences. I haven't gone through the whole poll yet.
All of the polling you've seen, you don't think we've seen a break? You don't see it's breaking towards Biden?
You're seeing a change in momentum. You're not seeing an actual change in people's minds. That's the difference. Now that may cause them to tell pollsters different things, and that's fine. What the president needs to do is talk about, and somebody asking in the live chat right now,
this is Signal, what he's talking about. This is why they're coming out now with the he lied to you, because they know they can stop any potential momentum. Some momentum would come from the 60-year-old, 65s and older who are traditionally Trump in 16 have supported Trump that have gone away. Guess why? One topic, the pandemic, not the economy, because they're already set, right? As long as you don't touch Social Security. But that is where you can that break to come back to Trump would be a momentum. That's where and this is 1,000%. I said this last week when they start on Friday. I said that question right there. They're going to blow this up. They're going to metastasize this. He lied to you. He's Typhoid Mary. That he never got tested. We want to know the last negative. It's Sunday, something like that. And this is all. Remember, everything you see in the mainstream media, these producers who listen to this show are very smart people, right? They don't agree with you politically, but do not think they're dumb. Now, they overplay their hand. They get caught up in the pathos that Raheem Kassam talks about in the Aristotelian dialectic, right? But they know how to play pathos. And what they're doing here, they need to make sure that there's no chance that Trump can get any momentum, real momentum, right? Or Steve Cortez yesterday said increasing momentum, right? What do they call it, the second derivative? We need the second. We need the in polling or a thing. You need the second derivative, right? You need to show momentum on your momentum, right? They need to stop that. Where they need to stop that, the 65 and older vote, and that's what the one that's most focused on the pandemic, and that's why they got to show Trump's a liar. Trump endangered you.
Well, here's how they do that.
Am I wrong?
You're wrong.
I'm wrong.
Do you know why? Because 65 years and older, they know, we've seen it in this Pew polling concerning China, they know that communist China is a danger to themselves, especially to their grandchildren and the future of this country. Many of our elderly people spent their entire lives fighting a Cold War against the evil communists of Russia. We should be doing the same exact thing against the communist Chinese.
I know.
And Joe Biden is an ally to this communist regime.
I agree with you, but you're not listening to me. Here's what I'm saying. No, I agree with you. That's what I've been saying. Hey, I've been saying CCP virus since January. But hang on for a second. We're going to get this. Hang on. What I'm saying is that is a conversation you have to have. They get it, but it's not. There's nothing coming out of the White House that's powering that, okay? What they're trying to do, and here's how they got it played out. They realized the only way to ship, we got 26 days, guys. 26 days was back in 26 days ago was what in September, right? It was after Labor Day. It happens like bang, like that. You can't have real thought things. They know the one pool of voters that were pro-Trump that are not right now is that the number that freaks everybody out is that 65 and older crowd that used to be Trump. We're so heavy Trump in 16 that's not. Why? The number one thing on their mind is pandemic, right? Why? Because that's the way they can leave the yard. They are the targeted intervention, right? And they don't think he's taking it seriously. Every polling shows that. If they can now bring out, right, that he's been lying to you, he wasn't tested, he's a bald-faced liar, right? He's Typhoid Mary. Don't get me wrong, there are other things we can do, although we're just not going to, as much as I would love to, and it's not that you can't build the resistance afterwards on this, on CCP, et cetera, like that. But the White House has not said CCP virus. The 65-year-olds get it. It's just in 26 days. I don't think that's going to flip that base as much as, hey, here's my plan for the pandemic. It's called the Barrington. It's called this, right? With targeted interventions and what do they call it? Focused protection. Am I wrong there? Go ahead. Come in here. You're good. You're the audience favorite.
Focused protection.
You're the ones the audience loves.
Listen, here's what I got to say, though, about what we're talking about here. We got 25, 30 days here. We talk about this as a war. What is the first rule of modern combat? When attacked, counterattack. This nonsense about them claiming that Donald Trump is lying is a speculative notion on their part. Not a single person, they've been trying all morning, can find me a quote where he says that he's gotten it every day, him personally, and has lied about it. We don't know what was going on in July. That was 2 months ago, though. We don't know what was going on. We know this quick testing may not have been as good.
Hang on a second. Are you telling me every day you sit here and came to the war and pandemic that you didn't assume that the president was being tested every day?
I did assume that the president was being tested every day, but we don't have any confirmation that he was not yet, right? And we also don't have any confirmation that he was not following all the guidance of his own doctors and the CDC. This idea of trying to turn this pandemic into something that Donald Trump is responsible for is thoroughly irresponsible.
I'm with that 1,000%, but I would like to have this. That must come from our leader in Donald J. Trump to say CCP virus, not do the video the other day when he called it COVID. COVID does not exist.
Repeat, Donald Trump.
Yeah. CCP virus.
Okay.
Go ahead.
But hold on.
Yeah.
You guys are missing things. This is a lot of noise happening here right now. You're missing the point.
Give me signal.
The point is what people out there are effectively telling pollsters and what the data is effectively showing, at least in my reading, is that you have an extraordinary moment to reset the whole thing right now. You have this, it's almost tabula rasa, right? A blank slate right now. That's why there's so much noise. The media is just chattering, chuntering on and on about
they
nothing.
throw a tremendous flack.
And and maybe he's doing this, and maybe they said this, and maybe he didn't get tested on this. It's just noise. And what the president and his team needs to understand is there's a reset moment. So pull back everything. Start again. You've got 20-odd something days. That's a long time in politics. Start again and pick your three core narratives that you're going to hammer over and over and over again. One, Jack, I agree. You got to turn the spotlight onto Joe Biden. You got to have the CCP virus, and I think the economy, right? And that you just every single day
open the country with the economy.
Every single day, every single day,
Democrats
announce something, do a speech, do a fireside
100%.
chat, whatever
This
it
is the short videos. Do them and do multiple things a day.
And where communist China is concerned, let's remember, you progressives out there, silence is complicity. Silence is complicity. You people who are not arguing against this evil regime, the Nazis of the 21st century, are complicit in your silence. Donald Trump is not. I want him to get out there in front of this. I want him to be the clarion call for the world about this evil shadow that is spreading across this planet.
Okay, the reason this show exists is the power of its audience. We want to hear from hashtag War Room Pandemic. We want to hear from the live stream. To give us your votes on the Ben Shapiro tweet. Also, we want to hear, Raheem just threw down Tabula Rasa, right? You got a blank slate, the 3 verticals. Give us your 3 verticals. Now's the time not to be silent. You've got a voice. Use it. Your force multiplier. Sam Faddis, next on War and Pandemic.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
For China. I've spent a lot of time, apparently I was told by the folks of state, I've spent more time in private meetings with Xi Jinping than any world leader. I have 25 hours of private dinners with him, just he and I, and one interpreter.
Okay, welcome back to War and Pandemic. This is the War Room for the 2020 election. We told you the pandemic. That's why we didn't take the name off in April, and that's why we didn't take the name off in the fall. Told you it was going to come back, going to be dominant. What should be dominant, one of the things that should be dominant is Joe Biden, and not Joe Biden socialist, Joe Biden as completely a globalist, an anti-nationalist, an anti-populist, a neocon, a neoliberal. But one aspect that always gets lost is not just the incompetence of Joe Biden and his phoniness. It's the corruption. And this is not about the Ukraine, not about Burisma, all that. Remember, what did we say back in War Room Impeachment? Ukraine is a sideshow to a sideshow. Russia is a sideshow, okay? Ukraine's a sideshow to a sideshow. The main thing, what you have to keep your eye on, boom, focus, is the Chinese Communist Party. That's the beating heart of the business model of the Party of Davos, right? That's why their slave labor, Beijing's, the slave labor of China drives the reason everybody else is a serf. And if you're a millennial, this is why you don't own anything. This is why you're not going to own anything. You're nothing better, nothing more than a better fed, better clothed, in better shape, more woke Russian serf. I want to bring in Sam Faddis now. Amazing piece. Sam's a former CIA officer, operative back in the day when the CIA meant something. Not John Brennan's complete disaster. Can't wait till John Brennan's brought up and keelhauled for the disaster, what he turned the CIA into, and how he completely dropped the ball on our existential threat, the Chinese Communist Party. So he could run around and do this nonsense with Russia. And by the way, Russia, kleptocracy, bad guys, lots of nuclear weapons. Also, the size of New York State economy and demographic death spiral doesn't make one thing the world wants. And the only reason they exist economically is our allies, that would be Germany, right? Keeps them in business with doing natural gas and oil and gas and natural resource deals. Ally Germany. Enough to make a grown man, pull his hair out. Okay, Sam Faddis, talk about Hunter Biden. Why have the corruption of Hunter Biden and the Biden family, the brother too, why has this not taken more center stage? Then is it just people are just tired of the Burisma thing, and that's why they can't get focused on China? Why is Hunter Biden not considered a national security problem, which he is, sir?
Right. Well, first of all, there's no question that the guy is a national security problem. He ought to be charged. There ought to be a number of other people charged. Why Why aren't we hearing more about it? Because I think one of the most insidious things that the mass media does these days is not just distort things or lie. It's just sort of employ the cone of silence, to use the Maxwell Smart analogy, that certain stories are simply just written off. We don't talk about them. Every time you bring it up to Joe Biden, he announces that the story has been debunked. Well, nothing about Hunter Biden has ever been debunked, and Joe has never identified a single fact quoted to him that's incorrect.
Let's go to specific. I want to go back. You're a former CIA officer, wrote a great book about the decline and fall of the CIA. Why do you say, and how do you back it up, that he's a national security? Why do you kid just with a drug problem that is looked like he was raised by a pack of dogs? Why is he just not a bad guy who can't control himself or has these impulses, all that? Why is Hunter Biden? Where's Hunter? Out doing drugs somewhere or doing some other sort of perversion. Where's Hunter? Why is he just not a bad apple and a failure to launch? Why is he a national security risk and a national security problem?
Right. Well, the challenge with Hunter, obviously, is always to try to figure out which one of many threads to grab a hold of. But let me grab a hold of this because I think it's not discussed ever. Hunter Biden is running around the world when Joe Biden is vice president, really before then, but let's just focus on that. And it is very clear that what he's doing is selling influence. To anybody with any common sense, you can see this guy's getting paid by people all over the planet, and he's got nothing to sell other than the fact that daddy is vice president. Okay, well, I've spent some time in my life in the company of similar types who promise access. Here's the deal. At some point, you have to actually deliver on that access. People don't continue to hand you millions of dollars because you claim you can get to dad, but dad never does anything. And yet it goes on year after year after year, millions of dollars. Ukrainians, the Chinese dwarf everybody, as you noted, the Russians. So apparently Hunter is delivering, as he did in the case of Burisma, which means this is not just Hunter Biden cokehead who has a penchant for strippers. This is Hunter Biden actually delivering on access to his father. That means Hunter was in fact able, as it appears he did in the case of Burisma, to get dad to intervene on behalf of his clients.
Okay.
That means
hang on for a second, because I know John Solomon's got a lot of reporting out there. I want to go back. You're saying because of the duration of the time that they paid him overtime, right, and the fact that the Chinese have been involved in his 25 hours of conversations were back in 13 and 14, and he was the Joe Biden was appointed by President Obama to head the pivot to Asia, which was the direct coordination. Remember, back then they were a strategic partner. Remember that? Strategic economic dialogue. Except the fact that the treaty, the deal we signed in the Rose Garden told them, please don't do any more cyber intrusions into our companies where you're stealing $600 billion a year intellectual property. Can you please stop? And hey, how about not building any more environmentally unsound stationary aircraft carriers in the South China Sea, because it kind of looks like maybe you're militarizing that. Can you please stop that? And Joe Biden with his 25 hours, which he's bragging about, I think it's over with Richard Haas, bragging about that over at the Council on Foreign Relations, right? He's bragging about it. He's never released those transcripts. I haven't seen the readout. Where's the readout for that? Haven't seen the readout for 5 minutes of it, much less 25 hours. Love to see that. Think that ought to be a discussion topic. You're saying, is your point because you don't have backup documentation in detail? I understand that, but you're saying that just in Senator Johnson's investigations and other investigations, depositions, things that are set at trial, just the fact that this guy's paid over a number of years in the way that spycraft works, that clearly he's delivering access. Is that your point?
Yeah, without question. And in fact, you can see the hard evidence that he was doing that. Burisma, which is well known. Joe flies and leans on the Ukrainians. But back to China, which, as you say, is really center stage here. We know now that Barack Obama actually considered pushing back on the Chinese in the South China Sea when they were building on these artificial islands and having the U.S. Navy sail through their freedom of navigation patrols. And it was Joe Biden, whose son got paid $1.5 billion by the Chinese, who pushes back and convinces Barack not to do it. Well, that's delivering in a really, really big way.
How do you? Why do you say that? I know why I say that, but why do you say he pushed back on the militarization and went easier on him? What do you cite?
I think there have been multiple press reports talking about that, and has been established that he was one of the guys he was the principal individual leaning on Barack Obama and telling them to stay out of the South China Sea. And look at the entire optics of the famous trip where Hunter flies into Beijing and ends up first with $1 billion and then $1.5 billion, where he flies in literally on Air Force Two with Dad, as Dad is going to meet with the head of the Chinese Communist Party, with the head of the People's Republic of China. Look at the optics with the Russians, who paid Hunter, in installments over a protracted period of time. Clearly, they were getting what they were paying for.
Sam, this is Jack. I got another question, which I think our audience would like to hear back. Can you talk about this China General Nuclear Power Corporation that Hunter and his private equity group invested in, created alongside the Chinese Communist government? Because I think that this points to the threat that I want our audience to understand.
Right. Well, when Hunter ends up getting $1 billion and then $1.5 billion from the Chinese, they then proceed to move ahead with a whole series of initiatives. In some cases, they invest in existing companies. In some cases, they stand up companies, whole cloth. One of them is this China General Nuclear Corporation that's created. China General Nuclear Corporation is then caught red-handed spying and stealing U.S. nuclear technology in the United States. That's not supposition. One of their guys was arrested, confessed, he was indicted, he went to prison for a couple of years, presumably 2 years only because he rolled over and talked to the FBI and gave them what they wanted. So here is a company that Hunter Biden has created that is now involved in espionage on U.S. soil. There were actually several other companies he was involved with, also doing things like looking at technology related to F-35 fighter jets. And all of this brings us to another significant piece of this, which is if Joe Biden wants us to believe that somehow or another he had no involvement in this, he's pure as the driven snow, he has no clue what his son is up to, then what would be the reaction of the sitting vice president when he discovers that his son is up to his eyeballs in an espionage operation with the People's Republic of China? If he's really clean in all this, wouldn't there be a firestorm that ensued? Wouldn't he come down on his son like a ton of bricks? And in fact, there was never any reaction to this. In fact, to the extent we can see that Joe did anything, it was to do exactly what Hunter wanted him to do on behalf of his clients.
One other question, Sam, while I got you. What about John Kerry? What's his role in this? You know, his stepson, Heinz, was part of this crew. He told Kerry that he didn't want to be associated with the Burisma thing, but I'm pretty sure he participated in the Chi-Com $1.5 billion. What's the relationship here between John Kerry? It seems to me that he has to do some answering as well, particularly since he was running the State Department while Biden was running a private conversation deal-making operation with Xi Jinping.
Yeah, well, I think you're dead on. I mean, the reality is here that what Hunter is selling and what the companies he's involved with are selling is not purely access to the vice president. It's access to a whole strata of American officials and very wealthy people, which of course is part of the biggest problem we have with the Chinese communists right now, right? They have bought off a very large portion of the folks who really control this country.
Sam, can you hang over for the next segment? I want to talk about Brennan, and also I want to comment on Chris Hines. Chris Hines is the key that picks the lock. Chris Hines ran for the hills. You know why? Chris Hines looked around and said, I think I see what the Bidens are doing here. They are selling access. And my mother's already a billionaire anyway, so I don't need it. We'll be back with Sam Faddis in the CIA in a second.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Chris Hines comes from one of the most prominent families in America. They come from the Heinz food, empire, Heinz ketchup. Father
was an extremely well-respected Republican senator from Pennsylvania.
Died in a helicopter accident?
In a horrible plane helicopter accident. Yeah.
The hit a power line, right?
I think they clipped another jet. I think it was a helicopter clipped the wing of a jet that was too close by.
Too close.
It was a tragic accident. But here's the point. We talk about whether or not Hunter Biden is corrupt. And if you remember, in 2014, right after Biden announced his deal in a PR release for working with Burisma, Chris Hines contacts the chief of staff of John Kerry in an email and says, apparently Devin and Hunter both joined the board of Burisma, and a press release went out. I can't speak why they decided to, but there was no investment by our firm and our company. He makes it clear that he does not want to be involved. He doesn't want Rosemont Seneca involved. Why? Because he knows it was a corrupt deal. Now, here's the big thing.
He's the guy that picks a lock.
John Kerry claims that he was never informed of this by his two chiefs of staff.
Devin Archer. Devin Archer is also a Yale guy, right?
I don't know if he's a Yale guy or not.
He's a Don't give me. I don't know.
But he certainly has a lot of access to.
You guys, the skull and bone. Oh, you whiff and poofs. The whiff and poofs know who they are. Come on, Devin Archer's a Yale guy.
That may be.
Look it up. Come on.
Are you trying to say that Devin Archer is a whiff and poof?
I'm saying I thought all the guys from Yale were whiff and poofs. But that picture. Chris Hines picks the lock because he ran for the hills. He knew exactly what the scam was. The scam was,
and you know what?
They were selling access.
Chris Hines and his family have a reputation to protect. I mean, his father was a great patriot.
Republican senator.
And this idea that the Hines family would be painted with this smelly brush of the Biden family, I would think they'd want to respond. Because at some point, his stepfather is going to have to answer for his actions, and we're going to wonder whether or not Chris Hines also profited from access.
The Bidens act like Irish tinkers, right? I can say that because I'm Irish. Irish tinkers. The other guy, it's Hunter, but don't forget the brother, Frank. Frank's just as corrupt, right? They've got the guy, they're calling when they're rounding up the CEFC. And they put Patrick Ho, the feds grab Patrick Ho, and he calls Frank, and Frank sits there and goes, why are you calling me? Call Hunter. How did you get my number?
Hey,
right?
If Sam is still there, Sam, why don't you talk about what James Biden says when they pick up Paradigm Global Advisors, and he talks about how they're going to start raising money for their new hedge fund they just purchased.
Sam, you with us? Is Sam still there? How did we lose Sam?
He's about to be named.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Senate Foreign Relations Committee. And as you say, the Bidens stand up this investment company. And James is actively talking about how we've got lines of people, we've got lines of 747s filled with people who want to come invest in the Bidens. I mean, he is making no secret about the fact that they're selling access to Joe, and they're in it to make a lot of money. And this kind of takes us to, I think, one of the key points that gets glossed over, even when people talk about Hunter and accept, all right, well, look, he's dirty. Clearly, he stinks of corruption. The fact that Hunter is selling the access and the fact that Hunter is collecting the money does not equal in this kind of world that all of the money stops with Hunter. In fact, that would be very weird. That would be very unusual that people like Joe Biden would be taking the steps that we're talking about taking and not getting something in return. In other words, even if you accept that Hunter is a scumbag, That doesn't mean he's the only scumbag. There is no reason to think that this money didn't make it all the way up to Joe Biden, and that Hunter is just the bag man for them.
Sam, we've got a couple minutes left. I got to ask you about Bannon and his new book. I'm sure you have not read it, but I would love for you to read it and come back and give us your analysis. But Brennan's sitting there on Rachel Maddow, and he's talking about Russia and all this. What happened to the intelligence community? How did they miss the greatest miss in the history of the intelligence community? And they've had some misses. Pearl Harbor, 9/11, just throwing out a couple, small ones. How did they miss the rise of China? How did they miss all the games China was playing? How did they miss China rising to be a hegemon? How did Bannon, on his watch, miss this?
Well, I'll give you a couple answers. One is that the intelligence community, including the CIA, is no longer run by actual spies. It's not run by operatives anymore. It's run by people who spent their entire careers in Washington, D.C., and who are primarily focused on politics. The second answer is, to a certain extent, nobody's missing anything. They've been bought off. I mean, our elite is no longer working on our behalf. Our elite works for the Chinese Communist Party, and you can see that in our streets every day.
Sam Faddis, an American patriot. Sam, your book on the decline and fall of the CIA is a magnum opus. But you've got a new book out on the Kurds, which is fantastic. How do people give us your Twitter handle, the magazine? How do people get more access to you?
On Twitter, I'm at Real Sam Faddis, and the magazine is andmagazine.com, andmagazine.com. Getting ready to write on Gina Haspel right now.
Gina Haspel put out with the tip of a hot burning cigarette. Okay, I kind of like her. She ran the black side, so But I'm sure if Sam Faddis is going to tell us about when she was running the London station, I'm sure that's going to have a little play in Crossfire Hurricane. Okay, Sam, thank you very much. Honored to have you on, sir. Look forward to having you on next week. About Gina Haspel. Next segment, I want to get to Dr. Jan's turn on Tucker last night. We'll get more on China. I want to talk about the Global Times, the polling that's come out by Pew Research. What brother was talking about a minute ago. Brother Jack Maxey was talking about the polling from Pew. The Global Times has got a rejoinder on that. I want to talk about Dr. Jan, her hit last night on Tucker Carlson. We haven't gotten into, and I know everybody's sitting on the edge of the seat, we haven't gotten into the debate tonight. Is this going to be a snooze fest, Pence versus, talk about where's Hunter, where's Kamala? Where's Kamala? She, for somebody who's supposed to be the rock star of this debate, she kind of went into, she's actually in bigger hiding than Joe Biden.
This is actually the lead on Politico right now. Why has Kamala Harris been so quiet?
Really?
Trying to avoid being a super spreader, right, Raheem?
Okay, short commercial break. We're going to come back with Dr. Jan and her hit last night, Tucker Carlson. Be back in a moment. We're in pandemic.